Hi everyone, it's Sophia Melonē, the Debt Demolisher, and I'm back for another week of the Sophia Melonē Show. This week, what I want to talk to you guys about is how to overcome the obstacles when it comes to building a reserve. So let me tell you how this topic came about and why I'm deciding to touch on this tonight. So about a week and a half ago, I posted a poll on my Facebook page, pretty much asking folks what was their top priority for 2019 in terms of their financial goal. And they had the option to choose between either demolishing their debt or building a cash reserve. Out of all of the responses that I received in terms of the poll, 58% of the poll responses indicated that their top financial priority for 2019 is to build a cash reserve. And I want to touch on what was some of the things that I experienced during my debt freedom journey and why building a cash reserve is so important, and not only why it's so important, but how sometimes it can be very difficult to actually build that reserve to create that level of cushion for yourselves. So I think it's important for us to talk about this conversation on tonight, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to learn from me and to get some insight for me, because I was able to build my reserve to 5 figures in less than 9 months while demolishing 6 figures of debt. And I share this with you guys because it is important. It is important to understand that building a reserve is necessary in your debt freedom journey. If you are a person who wants to get out of debt and this is something that you really want to do, you have to establish that baseline and have your reserve. So let's touch on the process a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what it takes to actually overcome the obstacles that you may be facing to actually build a cash reserve so you can have that financial cushion. But before we start, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my pain points, what I experienced, what were some of the things that was hindering me from actually building a cash reserve. So one thing that I can say for me was I honestly, truly, in my mind and in my mindset growing up, I did not believe that having a cash reserve was necessary. And let me tell you why. Because I operated from a standpoint where I thought, okay, I can just go make more money. Okay, I'm getting another check, so I'll be fine. Oh, I'm getting another check, so that'll be able to cover whatever is coming up. I know that I'll be able to work, so I don't need a cushion. That's what I told myself majority of my adulthood, especially when I started working full-time once I graduated from college. I told myself that I didn't need to have a cash reserve because my paycheck was my cash reserve, right? But I'm going to tell you how that mindset hindered my progress in getting out of debt. And I'm going to tell you, I got to a point when I started my debt freedom journey, I got to a point where I was completely overwhelmed because as I was paying off the debt, stuff started happening. Flat tires, roof repairs, things that were expensive needed to be taken care of. And we're talking about flat tires back to back. And me not having a financial reserve to pay for those things, I had to go back and resort to using the credit card. So because I didn't have a reserve, because I didn't have any way to pay for these unexpected expenses out of my recurring paycheck because they were already accounted for at this point, I had to use the credit card in order to get my roof repaired, in order to replace my tires 4 times, in order to pay for a major car repair, in order to pay for something unexpected that came up that I didn't necessarily plan for. And because I ended up using the credit cards, that ended up increasing my debt all over again. So even though I was paying things down, I was still accumulating more debt. Why? Because I did not have a cash reserve. I did not have that cushion. So one thing we want to make sure that we do is, especially if we're in this process of demolishing our debt and becoming debt free, we have to have that reserve. And I felt so overwhelmed because I didn't have the financial cushion to be able to sustain me when those things came up. That was very overwhelming because my debt just kept increasing. It kept increasing throughout the process. So that was the turning point for me to actually realize, like, wait a second, I have to do things a little bit differently. I have to change my approach here, because having a reserve is the foundational principle that you need in order to keep you in a space of not being in debt. So if you're trying to get out of debt, you got to build that reserve. And not only that, I'm going to tell you guys, it's going to rain. It is going to storm. Something is going to happen. So you need that rainy day fund. You need it. You need the rainy day fund. So don't be like me, like I was, living in a space where I was just relying on my next paycheck and didn't feel like a reserve was necessary, because I'm here to tell you that it's necessary. And when you have that reserve, your mental mindset will be in a space where you are just feeling so free. Your anxiety will diminish. You will feel so comfortable with yourself because you don't have a financial burden that you have to worry about, because you know that you have something there that is available to sustain it when that event happens. All right. So you may be wondering, all right, Sophia, how do I do this? What was the process? What did you do to build your reserve to 5 figures in 9 months? What did you do? So in this moment, I want to share with you just 3 major things that I did to turn my financial reserve around 360. The first thing I did was I decided on the amount that I was going to pay myself first. So these past few weeks, if you guys have been watching along, I've been talking about paying yourself first and why that's so important. So when you decide to pay yourself first, you have to determine how much you're going to pay yourself. So the first thing I did was I made a decision on what I was going to pay myself. How much, if it was a dollar amount or if it was a percentage, how much of my pay am I going to extract and keep as a placeholder for me? And one of the things I want to challenge you to do when you're asking or when you're trying to decide is ask yourself a couple of questions. What are you deserving of? What do you deserve? What are you worthy of? You work so hard for your money. You work hard every day, punching the clock so you can earn an income. And it's your responsibility to be able to retain some of that for you and not give it all away. Not give it all away. So when you're deciding on the amount that you want to pay yourself, I need you to really think about what you are deserving of and what is important and necessary for you to be able to feel like, okay, I can keep this. This is what I am willing to pay me. So decide that. The next step I did after I decided on the amount, I did the most easiest thing you could do ever. And that was I automated the process of paying myself first. I automated it, which means that I took it off top. So the same way that the government makes sure that our withholding is withheld from my paychecks, the same way that they make sure that those taxes are taken out, you need to treat yourself in that same parameter. You need to go ahead and say, okay, this is what I'm taking off tops to pay myself or to pay myself with. What are you taking off top for you? Automate that process, because if you leave it to you to do it, you're going to pick and choose when and how you will pay yourself first. And what we want to do is we want to take that off the table. We need to take that control off of ourselves, because we are emotional people and emotional beings when it comes to our money. So when we automate it and take it off tops, that is like a game-changing move right there. Last but not least, another thing that I did to make sure that I was able to build my reserve to 5 figures in 9 months, after I decided the amount, after I automated the amount that I was going to pay myself first with, after that, I had to work with what I had left. Work with what you have left. So after taxes have been taken out of your pay, after insurance deductibles have been taken out of your pay, or insurance premiums have been taken out of your pay, after you've paid yourself first, after you've tithed, what are you going to do with the rest? Work with what you have. And how do you work with what you have? You work with what you have by figuring out one of two things. You either have to reduce your expenses, or you have to figure out a way to increase your income. Those are your only two options. So you have to work with what you have by supplementing the difference for what you need, right? So we have to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a space where we are willing and we are able to make do with what we have and make it work. We have to start thinking outside of the box and start thinking, what are some things that I can do to make some more money? What are some things that I can do that I can sacrifice a little bit for a short period of time just to be able to free up some cash so I can supplement and pay my necessary bills? What are some things that I can do, right? Start thinking about what you can do now to supplement your income. It's important for you to pay yourself first. If you don't take anything else from this video and you're watching right now, do those 3 steps. Do those 3 steps. And it's so hard for people to do this. And not only other people, me, it was hard for me because I never had that mindset. I never had that mentality that it was important enough for me to pay me. I was willing to put everyone else before me, creditors, companies, everybody else. Until I started this debt freedom journey, I realized that building that cash reserve was necessary. I realized that it was necessary for me in order to really be able to reach my end goal. And this is exactly why I created my resource mastery program, because I was sick and tired of making a decent living and not having a bank account to match. So what does resource mastery do? My program, Resource Mastery, teaches you how to build a reserve, how to build a bank account that can match your salary. Are you tired of earning 6 figures, or are you tired of earning close to 6 figures and not even having anywhere near that in your bank account at the end of the year? Is that something that you're tired of? Is that something that you're tired of living out? Is that something that you're tired of experiencing? Ask yourself these questions, because if this is you, then resource mastery is what you probably want to get involved in. And now my program isn't for everybody. I'll be honest, because I don't work with everyone, because you have to have a certain level of tenacity, a certain level of commitment, a certain level of enthusiasm to really be able to work through this process. Are you ready and are you willing? I don't know. That's for you to decide. So I want to leave you with a couple of questions before I sign off. Remember to ask yourself, what am I deserving of? Not only that, ask yourself, what do I want to plan for? What do we want to plan for? Because remember, anything that we have in our possession in terms of resources has a space and it has a place and it is accounted for in some form or fashion. So even if you're building a reserve, What are you building it for? What is it for? What do you want to plan for? Ask yourself. And then, what will it actually take for you to really be debt free? If you're someone who wants to experience that freedom, if you want to get out of debt, you're tired of living the rat race, you're tired of living in the vicious debt cycle, ask yourself, what will it really take for you to be debt free? Like, really sit down and ask yourself, what will it take? And then once you've done that, you want to ask yourself, am I willing to do what it takes to get there? Are you willing? Are you willing? Are you willing and ready to endure and go through the process of overcoming the struggles that you may experience when it comes to building a cash reserve? For anyone who responded to the poll and indicated that building a cash reserve was a top priority for you, I really want to know, what are you going to do in 2019 to make that happen? What are you going to start doing right now to make that happen? Because ultimately, you have the power. Ultimately, you have the choice. Ultimately, you have the autonomy to start now, to meet that financial goal, to build that cash reserve. Because I'm telling you, if you want to get out of debt, you're going to need it. If you want to stay out of debt, you're going to need it. If you want to start to build wealth, you're going to need it. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. I hope that you found some value. I really want to challenge you and encourage you to do the work, do the steps that I've outlined. Start with just one. Ask yourself these questions and start to really dig deep. Dig deep within yourself and remember what you are deserving of, because you're worthy. You're here, you're breathing, you're in this present moment. So you have an abundant life that's awaiting you. An abundant life. So don't settle. Assign what you are worthy of and commit to paying yourself just that. And find out more information about the Resource Mastery Program if that's something that interests you. But remember, your financial prosperity awaits you. Have a wonderful night. See you guys next week when we'll continue the conversation. Have an awesome one.